guys ready? Okay. Welcome to the December 7th, oh, not December 17th, sorry. Welcome to, what day is it? January 21st, 2016 meeting of the Downtown Design Review Committee. First order of business is silence your cell phones. Secondly, roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner. Present. Charles Ainsworth. Present. Corey Bates. Present. Connie Scothorn. Present. You have a quorum. Richard Tannenbaum's absent. Sorry, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the minutes. I hope that everyone has had an opportunity to review those. Do we have a motion? Okay.
In each one of the votes from last meeting, I listed as absent on the front page. I don't know if that.
Were you here or not? So we need to strike Corey's name from each one of the votes.
No, on the votes, it's written correct on the front pages.
Oh,
We need to record him as absent.
okay. Right. Very good. With that change, do we have a motion? With the alteration? Second. That was Gigi on the second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving right along. We have no cases withdrawn. We have one continuance request. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to that? With that being said, do we have a motion? Oh,
I'm not going to be here next meeting. Could we continue that till March? Does it make a difference to
Is
anybody?
the applicant present? No? Okay. So, you want to go ahead and make that motion?
I move to continue till the March meeting.
Second. Okay. That was Connie and Gigi. All in favor? Any opposed? Great. There are no items on the consent dockets. The cases for individual consideration. First item is 700 Northwest 7th Street. Is the applicant present?
Good morning. I'm Dennis Matheny with Reese Associates,
Okay.
representing Valor Health.
Right. Laura, do you have any comments?
We've resolved some issues since your last meeting. As you might have recalled, you had requested a drawing showing how the building was going to look with the proposed, let me get to that, the way they were proposing to screen the oxygen tank. And if you look in the drawing down here in the lower right corner, because they were, as you might recall, they were proposing evergreen screen around their 4-foot ornamental fence, and you kind of wanted to see how it was going to fit in with the design of the structure. And so they provided this, which is per your request. Subsequent to that meeting, they've also gotten approval for the 3 curb cuts that they were wanting from traffic because of the way they're doing this access point. It counts as 2. So that has also been approved. And here's the 3rd one at this location. And so those are on your agenda for your discussion and approval today. You approved the rest of the project at the last meeting.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Any comments or questions from the gallery? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
So that was a Gigi and Connie motion. Well, that.
And just as a reminder, they are going to need a variance.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
And so that is also something that you guys will need to address.
Okay, you can make that a separate motion if you'd like.
Okay. I'll just move to approve, and I'll just amend my motion. Approve the application on the basis that it complies with the regulations and guidelines of downtown design zoning ordinance with the condition that the applicant receives a variance from the requirement for solid screening of material matching the primary building.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gigi, second by Chuck. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your motion has been approved. Your application.
And
Oh, and then,
second, I'll make a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for the variance from the requirement of solid screening.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The next item is 59 North Robinson. Is the applicant present? Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, members. Eric Winger, Public Works Director for Oklahoma City and applicant for the Project 180 pedestrian project, or pedestrian park project that's before you today. I think as just a brief summary, we had previously presented to the board just a few months ago, and we do have the PowerPoint with us today if we do need to go back through that, but there have not been significant changes to the project. I think in summary, this is the final park project of Project 180. There's been a number of park projects in the downtown area that have been recreated. This is one that will actually reestablish the pedestrian park, or the Raven Park, as some may know, in downtown. So it's an area bound by Park Avenue on the north, Harvey on the west, Robinson on the east, and then Main Street or the IRS building on the south. It's going to enhance the pedestrian atmosphere and the access. It's going to make it ADA accessible. It provides a variety of new landscaping, hardscaping, water features, new lighting, but it is a complete remake of that area. The budget's about $3.1 million, and the changes since we last presented to you just a few months ago, the budget retained the same. The schedule has adjusted back about 2 months. Right now, we're scheduled to go out to bid, pending your approval, in March of this year, with finishing it up in spring of 17. There has been also some adjustments due to the retail study, the Park Avenue retail study, to further open up the corner, which is located at Harvey and Park. This would be the southeast corner next to Oklahoma Tower. So we've made a few adjustments there to make it even more pedestrian accessible. There's been a seat wall that has been added. Again, this was at the request of some of staff that had reviewed those drawings. I think the final item that we have is we are still working with the owner of the Raven Apple art piece that's currently in that park to restore it into the park, but we have not actually made a final location for that, but we are actively working with the owner of the art and making sure that that's accommodated as well. So with that, we're seeking your approval today. Those are just a few of the minor adjustments that were made, but no other significant changes, and can answer any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions from the committee?
Just use the wrong one. The catenary lighting that's between the buildings, that's listed as an alternate, could you speak to, I guess, the realistic possibility that is included in the project?
So I will share with you that everything that you have seen in the drawings is anticipated to be constructed, but obviously going into bid markets that are uncertain, we have identified a number of project alternates just to help protect the budget itself. I would say at this point we're comfortable that we're going to be able to receive a bid that's within the budget and move forward with that lighting system. But should something surprise us, say in the next month or so, and bids come in higher than anticipated, that may be an item that may not be included. But at this time, we're looking to include everything that's shown on the plans.
The one area that seems to be atypical would be the south side of Oklahoma Tower, where the width of the path really narrows, and you don't have as many elements in that area. And the catenary lighting is shown right now, probably extending west only halfway through that. I think given how tight that is, getting as much lighting into that area would be beneficial, potentially extending that catenary lighting further west, just to avoid that tighter portion from feeling like an alley.
Let us take that comment and see what best we can do to make sure that there's adequate lighting. I think especially the constriction that's in that area is what you see on this slide on the left-hand side, is that there's some existing parking that's being retained as a part of the park project. So we're maintaining that existing parking to a degree, but then also enhancing the pedestrian access on the east, separated again by that screen wall. But again, I think that we're going to see some new elements added, and we'll ensure that the architect takes that in full consideration. Yeah.
And then one other question regarding drainage. Where the project is being installed above the existing parking lot, there's a drainage mat that's being used. Sorry. The air drain geogrid. Could you speak to how when that grid's receiving drainage and working with the existing plane of the parking garage, how that water is being managed and where it's ultimately going?
I'm going to invite Scott Howard, the architect of record, up to help better explain that for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, one thing that was very important is how we were going to be able to maintain that flow of water. That's how we came up with the GeoGrid, where the existing channel and movement of water flows to the existing inlets that are surrounding all of those buildings. Now, in addition to what flows subsurface is any water that's caught on the surface of the pavers, which we'll have some. We're also extending the existing drain inlets another 3.5 inches higher, but it still has perforations on the side, so that water flows as it naturally would, because we really can't change the top of that deck. So that's our plan.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's going to be a great plaza. I think the rock formations are interesting and artistic. I'm excited to see it. I did have a question about the area that's west of the Oklahoma Tower, which it feels to me like is independent of the landscaping in front of the Oklahoma Tower and also with the Project 180 landscaping. It seems like there should be some kind of connection between the two, and I wanted to hear.
Sure, and I think one of the things to, as we look at some of the renderings, the streetscapes themselves, so the streetscape on Harvey, the streetscape on Park, and the things that you find throughout the downtown area, you're finding a lot of the gray-toned pavers. You're finding a lot of the park light benches. You're seeing some of the bicycle racks. You're seeing some of the lighting that's painted in the aluminum colors. All of those are being retained on the perimeter of this park as a part of those existing streetscapes. So when you look up and down Robinson, when you look up and down Park, when you look up and down Harvey, which are on three sides of this park, you're going to have the full integration of 180 with all of the 180 details. But as you establish, there are quite a few unique features inside the park that include some of the water features that have been designed by Marassi. With some of the stone elements. You're finding also some of the raised planter beds that use some different textures of rock materials that aren't unique to Project 180. They're specific just to this project. But those are really more interior to the project itself. So you're going to see some of those things from the street, but the edges of the streetscapes fully integrate into 180.
Well, I think that wasn't what I was talking about. Like, for instance, there's a grass bed that looks to me like it backs up to the entrance to the Oklahoma Tower, and it seems like it's actually a line there that's a division point between those two spaces instead of making that one space that kind of flows between one area and the next.
Well, let me invite Scott back up. Those were probably some of the changes that we made as a result of some of our staff comments. So let me have Scott
Connie, is
comment on
that on
those.
the south side of the Oklahoma Tower or on the west side?
West side.
Are you talking about that triangle? That's a vent. It's not.
I know that they can't design to match a vent. But I was just talking about the patterning. For instance, there's lines going through the plaza that it seemed like if they were lined up with those trees, that it might be a more unified space.
Yeah. I think part of that has been adjusted, and that was from a comment from Planning Department and the Park Avenue retail study to open that up. And what we did is, as you know, because I think you all helped us work on it, but the seat wall that projected north from the mechanical vent actually is going to turn south so that it opens up and wraps around and opens up the pedestrian movement and flow. As far as the stone elements, again, if you look at the Main Street Park area, there are several of the stone mounds there, and it basically connects the Harvey side of the park to the Main Street side of the park. So it is has continuity, and the Project 180 boundaries are still intact. But you know, it's almost like this is a separate park, and it's not that 180 has to project beyond the right-of-way in all cases. I think every project should have its own identity, and this blends in because we'll be using a charcoal-colored paver that is very similar to the charcoal pavers that are on Project 180, with a few accent bands. But again, the intent is that the accent bands are random. They're not on a set grid providing rigid symmetry. It's more of a random placement.
It was about 20 degrees when I was looking at it yesterday,
Pardon me?
so it was really cold. I didn't get a chance to.
In our staff recommendation, we asked the design team to look at that whole corner by the Chamfer of Oklahoma Tower, because the Park Avenue retail study really wanted to open that up since it's prime retail space. It envisioned cafe tables, and because this is a relatively small marketable space, so that they would need the outside to help make their business grow. So we've asked them to, but because of the time constraints of the meeting, we didn't have time to think about it and get it back to you. So we've suggested a condition that it be brought back to staff. We can bring that corner back to committee, if you like.
Do we have any comments from the gallery? Anyone who wants to speak to this? Any other questions? Anyone want to try to craft a motion?
Okay. I move that we approve the application on the basis that it complies with the regulations and guidelines of the design district zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the conditions that the new pedestrian plaza elements are pulled further south or adjusted away from the northwest corner, with the revised design to be brought back to the committee. And did you want to add something about the lighting?
With the condition that the catenary lighting is included as well.
Is that additional lighting be included, or that it be the base? Base bid?
That alternate be a basis of the project.
Do we have a second? Okay, so that was a collaborative motion, but Connie was the leader on that, and Gigi was the second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to seeing this. Okay, the next item is 220 Southwest 2nd Street. Is the applicant present?
I am. Good morning. Chris Fleming, 1101 North Broadway, number 400.
Okay.
So we have an old, obsolete building that was used as a parts warehouse for the former car dealerships that were located around this area, and as an obsolete building that no longer serves car dealerships, we're asking for it to be demolished.
What's the deal with the slab to remain?
So that we don't have a muddy mess or have to bring in concrete to remediate.
Okay.
stormwater issues.
So there are no plans for developing this, or are you just going to kind of wait and see what happens with the boulevard?
There's a lot of dynamic, the whole situation is dynamic with the boulevard going in, the park going in, the convention center going in across the street. And so, you know, given, I haven't checked it this morning, but $27 oil and announcements of towers that aren't being constructed and things like that, we feel it's prudent at this time to not develop this site in the foreseeable, in the near term.
Okay.
And if I might, just, this is the start of 3 demos for your discussion. This one came in before the new demolition ordinance went into effect, as we stated in the staff report. So it was reviewed per the old criteria, in which case I looked to see how it was, if it was included in one of the intensive level surveys. It was determined to be not contributing, obviously, because of when it was constructed. So in that case, the only reason that it's before you is because it's larger than 20,000 square feet, because it's 32,000 square feet. And so staff is in support of the demolition.
Is the billboard sign included in the demolition as well?
It is not. It is subject to a separate lease and will remain.
Nice try.
Good catch, Corey. Any motion? Anyone want to speak to this from the gallery? Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? That was a Chuck and Connie motion. All in favor? Everybody? Aye. Anybody opposed? You are approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next item is 509 Northwest 7th Street. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Brian Fitzsimmons, Fitzsimmons Architects, 2721 North Walker.
Okay.
Okay.
Laura?
I'll introduce it. So this is the first case of the year to be evaluated against the new demolition criteria that went into effect at the end of November. Those criteria, if you will remember, there are about 5 criteria to assess, and they can be, not all criteria will be applicable to every project, and the weights of any of those criteria are not prescribed. That will vary per application. Most of the members of this committee were on the first time this building was proposed for demolition about 2 or 3 years ago, and I believe most of them, I think Corey's the only one who wasn't on the committee. I believe everybody here got to go to a site visit. It was, the condition has not improved since that time. What we've outlined, per the ordinance, staff needs to weigh in on the significance and on the impact of design form and urban character. And then the applicant is invited to provide information about structural integrity, economic feasibility, and proposal for replacement, which the applicant has provided all that information. It's up to the committee to evaluate which factors they think weigh more than other factors.
Okay. I guess as a starting point, this is about a 3,500 square foot structure. When it was before there were also some back buildings, and those were demolished at that time and approved at that time. And the case was withdrawn at that time because we were in process of thinking about what the future development was. And before you today is, in essence, a proposed development that is a conceptual design replacement. If the demolition is granted, we will definitely move forward with this in the anticipation of beginning construction this year. As I said, the current structure is 3,500 square feet. The proposed development is in the neighborhood of 19,000 square feet. The new development, unlike the existing structure, conforms very nicely with the downtown ordinances with 3-story, street-lined. This will provide, at a minimum, 17 units. We're exploring possibly increasing that density with their replacement. The existing structure, if left to stand, is not very feasible to renovate. We did explore the possibility of renovating it. The amount of expense versus rate of return is very, very minimal, even with historic tax credits, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the new development will add vitality, increase the street edge. We have on this block 2 lots to the west, a recently built single-family house that's 3 stories that also conforms. And in thinking of this current design, we can only hope that the infill lots between these two establish that street wall. The front edge of this proposed design is in response to what is to the west, and ideally, as this block develops, we will have a nice, harmonious street wall that conforms to the downtown plan.
So this application is strictly for the demolition of that building. And there is a project proposed, but not actually before us today.
Yeah, and it's our understanding that the methodology of the demolition ordinance is a proposed replacement. And the intent is that this is a proposed replacement, but the actual application of the final design would be under a separate application, and that would probably be before you within a few months. So.
Okay. So with the price of oil, are we looking at 2 years from now?
Chris Fleming again. This project at 17 units would not really be impacted by the price of oil like a project that is slated to be 7 to 20 stories, and might be. So I would say that the likelihood of this project being delayed by the price of oil being low is also low. I mean, I would see this project proceeding regardless of the price of oil.
Is it a for lease or for sale project?
For lease.
Okay.
And the square footage of the townhouses is what size each individually? I'm just curious about that.
Current mix, we're looking at a neighborhood of about 1,000 square feet up to about 1,300 square feet. We're exploring some other mixes to provide some more economical units that would be as low as 600 square feet, and that's what we were talking about, and that's why we don't have the exact final design. We're trying to find that perfect mix that both creates a marketable project and provides housing for everybody.
So what you're thinking is the largest unit would be about in the neighborhood of 1,300 square feet?
Correct.
I think that's pretty leasable, very leasable.
I do like what this does to the street, or what this will do to the street. This will be really exciting.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this item?
I'm the house on the top right, like
Can you come to the microphone, because this records, the microphone records.
My name is Gary Copeland. I'm the house on the upper right, west of the site, 523 Northwest 7th. And I hadn't talked to anybody about this, or I saw this in the paper, I think it was yesterday when it came out. I love it. I wish I did get the announcement of the demolishment, but I didn't know they had any plans to put anything in at this point. We stepped out on a limb and did what we did because I sort of envisioned, hopefully, a look of modern brownstones along there. And that's sort of the direction we went, and I love the proposal they've made so far. And on top of that, I'd love to see that building gone. It's been nothing but a pain ever since we moved in. I mean, nothing to us. PD's taken care of it really well. But then there's been more than one recent incident. Regardless of how well they work to board that up, people can tear it down. And that's where it's been going right now. And I hate to see it fall into further disrepair because it looks unrepairable to me. So
okay.
I'm all for the whole thing. But I didn't plan on speaking, but I didn't know how y'all were accepting the proposal. I think it's great. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming forth. Anyone else? Do we have any other comments from the committee?
I think the project, even in my opinion, even with current economic conditions, is commercially viable, and I like the design very much. And I think it'll make a big statement for that area and the street. So I'm in favor of it.
Would you like to make a motion?
I can do that. Oh, hell. We're a team here this morning. I move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report.
Second.
It's a G.G. Chuck motion. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. The next item is 621 Southwest 7th Street. Is the applicant present?
Josh Sloan with Chickasaw Holding Company.
Could you write your name on the...
Yep.
Laura?
So here's our third and final demolition today. This one was submitted after the new ordinance went into effect, so kind of just continuing on how Lisa started the last one with there's 5 criteria. We did not receive additional information on this particular project. I mean, the main difference between this is a single-family residence versus the other one was the apartment building. Staff evaluated this one based on the intensive level survey indicated that this was contributing to the Orndale district. We've had a few of those before you in the 10 months that I've been appearing before you. As indicated in the staff report, there have been 11, since 2012 when the intensive level survey was done, there have been 11 contributing structures in this potential district demolished by either coming before the committee or going to City Council and going through that process where the City Council process doesn't involve you if they vote that it's a abandoned structure. This particular location down, as you can see here, Southwest 7th Street is the southern proposed boundary for an Orndale district. So this is right on the edge of the district. There is nothing else in this block that's left. Currently, there is it's a fairly nice paved parking lot, fenced parking lot next door that is part of Chickasaw Telephone. They are located across the street in these industrial buildings, as well as I believe they have these 2 storage warehouse buildings are also there for their use. And so it's a very industrial area. There are some structures starting to the north of this is where you start seeing more and more structures per block in the potential district. Staff felt, given the location where it is and that there's really nothing, there's not a cohesive design on this block, we didn't feel that it would be detrimental to a potential district. Keep in mind, this is just a potential district. Nobody has come to us with one. The structure itself is in very bad condition. They purchased it when it was already in this condition. It's been broken into before they purchased it, I believe. The owner died, and the family came, and it had already been broken into, and some things done to it. It was kind of hot-wired into electricity, which is very dangerous. Everyone's surprised that it has not caught fire yet, but they are trying to keep it cleaned up in that area. So as you can see, the parking lot that's next door, across the street, this is where their office is, the industrial warehouse buildings that they use also in that area. There is a vacant lot immediately to the east of it, leading toward the industrial building. They've indicated as well that they intend, it's really hard to see in this picture, the fence is falling down, and it's in really bad shape, and they plan on taking not only the structure down, but the fence. Because I called and asked, and I appreciate him coming to the meeting, because we had a long conversation about what they really are trying to clean up the neighborhood. They thank the city, the police department has been very active in that area because they've had issues. Staff did not feel that it would be detrimental to recommend approval of the demolition given its location in the proposed district. There are still some blocks that have several structures. Most of them are in pretty bad condition, especially the ones you've seen come before you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy. As you can tell, each one of these that were coming before, they're all going to be treated uniquely. And in this particular case, a lot of it is the location and the condition of the structure led to staff's recommendation that we support the demolition.
Okay. Thanks. Do you have anything more to add to that?
No, ma'am. That's we'd like to get it cleaned up. There have been vagrants in the last 3 months that we've owned it. We've rented out 7 different sets of people that have been in there, and it is an eyesore, and we'd like to get it cleaned up.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the gallery, or anyone want to speak to this? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Chuck, second by Connie. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
That's all we need to do on that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for being here and going through the process. The next item is the downtown development framework.
Yeah, earlier last year, we brought the downtown development framework to you. We also had held a big workshop for all the design review committees where Ian presented it, and it has since been adopted by City Council, or it's adopted by Council, but we're bringing it back because the committee last year recommended adoption to Planning Commission and City Council, but now we're asking the committee to specifically adopt this document as a supplemental guideline. That will mean that staff and the committee can specifically reference it. And to refresh your memory, it basically sets out development expectations on various lots. It doesn't rezone anything. It's just saying for certain areas of town, this is the density we intend to see, and that is based on the transportation network and adjacent uses. I already, use this in my work. It's a great resource to see the intent and to explain to applicants, here's what we foresee in this area. So we've provided you a whole punched copy so you can keep it in your binder for quick reference. there is a sample motion to the action is to adopt the resolution.
I just have a tiny question, or maybe it's a huge question. There has been a study provided by Urban Renewal, Okura, that is in direct conflict with some of the items in that. Is there any kind of resolution to that?
I wouldn't say conflict. I know there are differences. I don't know if I would say there are differences. The Okura standards are for Okura to assess financial assistance on projects, on properties that they're involved in. So that's their plan is what they evaluate those projects against. The planning department doesn't evaluate projects against. It's not our plan. We help put it together, but it's to assess TIF and other means of assistance. But what is in the ordinance is what's in the ordinance, and that's what we evaluate against.
So we should review it according to this and not according to the Okura.
Right. Okura evaluates their projects and projects they fund against their that master plan.
Okay.
There are one or two items of that master plan that were enveloped into the new comp plan. I don't exactly remember which ones they were, but one or two of them were encompassed in the comp plan. But it doesn't, it's in the zone around 10th and Hudson.
I love what this can do for us as far as addressing the streets and what types of streets they are and stuff like that.
Right now we're updating the Bricktown guidelines to include a lot of the physical characteristics described in here, and in 2016 we're going to be doing that for downtown. So there will be a couple of workshops for you guys to see how we intend to do that.
Okay, great. Anyone from the audience that would like to speak to this? Do we have a motion? To adopt this? That's what we're doing, adopting.
I move to adopt the resolution.
Do we have a second? A second. Chuck and Gigi, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Now, we have a couple of presentations real quickly. The first presentation is Dave Ledbetter. Would you like to come forward and talk to us about your presentation?
Hi. Dave Ledbetter, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. I'm here with the Faulkners, who are the owners of the project, to present a short video and answer any questions you have afterwards.
Okay. Great.
Sure.
Welcome.
Our project encompasses 3 separate parcels of land. We have the parcel to the left, which you see right now. It's fully raised approximately 6 to 8 feet above grade access on 7th Street. The middle portion of the project is going to be a potential food court. It consists of outdoor seating and dining, positions for 2 food trucks, 1 permanent pod, and 1 restroom pod. And the parcel to the east is a 140 by 140 existing parking lot.
These are containers?
Yes, ma'am.
So what's the closest cross street?
Northwest 7th, and this is adjacent to the alley, which is halfway between Broadway and South Oklahoma Street.
Broadway and Oklahoma.
We're directly north and east of the Magnolia Building. North and east of the Magnolia Building.
The band what?
Magnolia Building.
Okay, right. So I'm assuming that a certain amount, this is considered a certain amount of temporary.
As to the permanence of the structure, how long is our lease secured?
We have a 15-year lease.
15-year lease.
Okay, you have a 15-year lease on the land?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Any other questions?
So in looking at these renderings in the model, 7th Street is the side in which that mound?
Yes, sir.
That is 7th
The
Street?
alley heads north and south.
And that's because the land drops off quite a bit to 7th Street, or?
Yes. And our intention is to preserve the existing geographic characteristics of the site as much as possible. So I said the 3 different parcels. The parcel to the east is fully raised above the grade at 7th Street. The center parcel is approximately 2/3 at grade level. Toward the north and to the rear, it raises up approximately 6 feet, and we try to preserve that. The intention is to have access to all individual parcels by a stairway and lift, so it's fully accessible in the first grade for all parties.
Corey, about the grade change, one item, design item staff wanted to point out was because of that, the applicant is proposing the main entrance around on the side, and the guideline is for entrances to face the street because it's downtown.
We have actually provided comments, because this came in as a project, and Dave wanted to do the presentation. This will be coming to you as a container project due to the scope of it. The other item that I wanted to point out, because there's comments that he's waiting to address based on your reaction today. One of the comments deals with it's required to be 3 stories or 50 foot in height at the street. And I can run through that again. You have the pictures, and we've pointed out that it's, in our opinion, this does not meet. There is part of the project that is 3 stories, but it is not along the street frontage, which is required to be. So we wanted to point that out as well.
Yes, so looking at this, one of my concerns would be how the street's being addressed, how 7th Street is being addressed. Mainly in the structure itself, as far as engaging with the street and creating a means of access from the street. Okay. Is there, so given the lots, is there any restrictions to the development of this relative to the lots themselves?
Okay. The existing lot onto where the majority of the where the container structure is located is approximately 6 to 8 feet above grade. Okay. We propose the entry for that particular structure to be to the east, access from the food court, also have a supplementary exit into the alley.
So my question regarding how the lots are being developed, I ask simply because, it just on the grand scheme of things, I would like to see the 7th Street addressed more with functionality than with, say, parking on one whole half of the development. Typically, the potential of putting the parking behind the development and really activating 7th Street.
Okay. The parking lot, as it is, exists presently. The other 2 lots are vacant.
Okay.
Okay. The parking lot is 140 by 140. The portion that has the container structure is 140 by 50. The vacant lot in the center, which would be the food court, is 60 by 140.
I mean, how much building?
Oh, do you have the list? Do you have the listing on that? The first floor, in terms of containers, I've got 3 40-foot containers and 5 20-foot containers. The second floor, I have 5 40-foot containers. The third level would have 1 40 and 1 20-foot container.
So I think the issues that have been brought up are very strong. We'd rather see engagement in the street.
Toward the street.
And we'd rather, I mean, the entrance to this whole thing is at the, way back at the back of the project, and that's really removes the engagement, excitement from the street, the pedestrian experience is removed from the street in this project. And an existing parking lot, we kind of say that's not really, there's nothing really there, even though I know paving costs money and stuff like that, but there's really nothing there that would keep you from developing the street line instead of keeping parking in that area. And you've got an alley to access for your food trucks. Do you not?
I'm not quite clear. The existing parking lot is, basically, that's pretty much a gift by Mr. Sire for us to use. He has no intentions of developing it towards structures or anything else.
Oh, it's somebody else's property?
Well, it's...
So you're not leasing that property as well?
How are we leasing that one?
He's agreed to let us use the parking lot. We're also going to be looking, to address what you were saying as far as the park, we're also looking right now at possibly putting in a basketball.
Oh, yeah, could you speak in the mic, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're looking at possibly putting in some sort of basketball court in the back to try and engage, community-type events. As far as the parking lot is concerned, Chris has said, hey, that's fine. You guys can use that for the development there. So does that answer your question?
So you don't own the park? You don't have a long-term lease on the parking lot?
We do not.
And that the access to your property is totally dependent on that parking lot?
Not necessarily. We have access from the center lot to the south. And Mr. Sire has agreed to let us have access from the parking lot to the food truck. It's on the east side. So I have east and south access to the food court. Can you play the video one more time until you stop it?
And then
Okay, that's good. Stop right there. If we were to provide some sort of access, I have an outdoor patio seating area here on the southwest corner of the structure. You can see there's like a 42-inch railing around there. If I provide an entry at that point with either a lift or some method to get from that point, that is the focal point of that structure. Would the committee be interested in entertaining something like that?
So you're saying the entry would be off the alley?
Right, pretty much, no. It would be entry from
Right here?
back to that corner right there. I would have a access from 7th Street in that position right there.
Is the berm and the
The berm exists as present.
Okay, and how much infrastructure modifications would be made relative to what's existing there compared to just dropping these on the site?
Yeah, right now we're trying to preserve the existing heights and the existing berm to a great degree. If we have access from the 7th Street, we have to do major engineering modifications to the berm area.
And then as far as any other modifications to the existing conditions, if these properties are on a lease as well, and at the end of the lease, this is all taken away, how would that condition compare to what's there right now?
The container structures would be an easy removal. The structure, there'd be a permanent change in the existing geography after we do some sort of entry from the 7th Street.
If there was an entry from 7th Street?
Yes.
But what we're looking at right now, relatively speaking, if 15 years from now this goes away.
It would be as it is presently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so strong comments. An entrance from 7th Street is a very important thing from an ordinance standpoint. The height of the structure is also important as far as the street wall is concerned.
And you do want the 3 stories at the property line to the south at 7th Street.
Well, that's what the ordinance asks for.
Okay.
They would have to get a variance if the committee approved it and if they pursued it.
If we were to seek a variance, would the committee support us, I think is our question, if we maintain the structure presently with the stair-stepped 3-story condition?
Well, it appears you're going to have to make several changes anyway, so I don't know that we can actually say that with any kind of positive reinforcement for you.
So what are you going to use the inside for, all the interior spaces? What are you used for?
Well, multiple use. The first floor, of course, would probably assembly. We have personal services, small retail. Have options for restaurants, either full service. I have some walk-up areas where you could grab and go. We are potentially going to reserve some of the spaces toward the north and second floor for residential for short-term stays. Short-term stay residential.
So basically, you're using the containers to kind of create some interior space between the containers, is that?
Yes.
Is the goal for this to be here longer than 15 years?
If we're successful, yes.
Given that, I would encourage you to address 7th Street and make some modifications to the existing conditions to approach that street, as we've discussed. You know, if it's a little of it's an interesting situation because it's somewhat temporary, but the goal is for it to be permanent. So that at least weighs in my thought process as far as how much to invest in the existing conditions and coming up with a product that meets the ordinance and really engages the street. And I think if the long-term goal is for it to be more of a permanent structure, then I think it's worth making the investments now to address 7th Street as we've talked about.
Want anything more?
No, that's...
Well, thanks for presenting to us.
And your second presentation was withdrawn. Last week, we got an email from the person who had requested it be on the agenda. I think they've gone back to the drawing board, so you'll probably see it again at some point soon.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for letting us know. So, anything outlandish in the administrative report? Any standouts? No? Okay, comments from the planning staff?
I've got a question or comment. Since does OG&E have any plans, or will they bring any plans forward regarding landscaping and/or something, since they're not going to build that building? I mean, that's a real opportunity, I think, to engage that school and, you know, some other downtown activities, since that park has become such a vibrant place.
Sure, yeah, they have not submitted anything to our office. I am told that multiple city organizations and city leaders are talking together about how best to, at a minimum, fill the hole and sod. But is there something above that that would help activate it and make it available for other organizations to use? I haven't seen anything. I know people are working on it.
Is there a statute of limitation to the approval of the previous plan?
The CA is good for 2 years,
Okay.
date of approval, so they're already a year, almost a year into that.
Any other comments from the committee?
I can tell you the bid boards, Jane Jenkins is engaged in that some, I think. So there's some interest, but I just, from the planning department standpoint, I'd kind of like to see you guys involved in it some too.
Yeah, I know Aubrey's at the table.
Yes. Any other comments? Okay, I'm not going to be here next month. It's the baby's birthday.
Well, we have a meeting.
We have a meeting on the
Yes.
18th
Yes, we do.
of February, and
Yeah, there's cases.
hopefully we will, hopefully we'll have a quorum.
I hope so, too. Yes.
Yeah, you are short a member. We've been working with the mayor's office to get a new one. So, did you say you're for sure not going to be here? Gigi? Oh, you'll be here.
It's Connie and me.
Connie, and so we need to, we'll double check with Dick, and we might try to schedule a special meeting.
I could do it on Wednesday, but not on Thursday.
Okay, yeah, we'll investigate.
Okay. Anyway, with that, how many applications have been submitted?
There's 3 or 4.
Okay. Excellent. We are adjourned.